Hello, Enterprise Connect 2021. My name is Alan Quayle. I'm the founder of TADHack Global. Now, TADHack is a global hackathon that focuses on telecom application development. What that means is programmable communications. Now, why is that relevant to the Enterprise Connect audience? Well, most of the enterprise systems are becoming programmable, so this really is an example of the future of enterprise communications. Now, just a few highlights of what we achieved at TADHack Global. We had over 1,000 registrations, which, given we're in the midst of a prolonged pandemic, is an amazing result. We had 3 in-person locations. Berlin was our only in-person last year. We also were able to include this year Orlando, so I'm down in Orlando, and Chicago. Then we had 4 virtual locations, that's Sri Lanka, South Africa, UK, and Colombia. But since the beginning of TADHack Global in 2014, we've always accepted remote entries. So we've had entries from Zambia, from France, from Malaysia, from all around the world come together to show all the cool stuff that you can do in TADHack. I have to give a special shout out to South Africa and to Sri Lanka. They really were massive events. South Africa had 400 registrations, which again, given we're in the midst of a pandemic, is an amazing achievement. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to show you a few highlights, a few of the pictures that were created on the global sponsors that make TADHack possible. And they include Ava Networks, so this is SMS Your Way. Symbol.ai, this is a conversation intelligence platform. Jambons, this is an open source CPaaS, so revolutionizing the whole CPaaS industry. Subspace, this is optimized real-time communications over the internet, and we had some great demonstrations there. And Telnix, a full suite of CPaaS services and capabilities. So with that, let's focus in first on Symbol and review one of the hacks that they had at TADHack. So we're now going to hear from Symbol.ai and the hack that was built using their conversation intelligence. Actually, this hack, which is called Wizard Chess, won the joint prize from Telnix and Symbol AI for AI-driven communications. You'll see, it's a very powerful demonstration of using your voice to control a chess game.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Steve.
And I'm Lily.
And we are Team Similarly Geeky, talking about Wizard Chess. Something that we built for TADHack. This uses the Telnix for voice in, voice out, and it uses Symbol AI for the processing of the text that comes in. So Wizard Chess, as the name suggests, lets you play a game of chess with your voice. We have essentially used $500 million of internet technology and infrastructure to play games. So what happens is that the user goes to the website, they see the game of chess they like to play, and they dial the number connected with that game.
Welcome to Wizard Chess. Please wait for the game to be ready.
They then speak into the phone, saying, I would like to move from here to here, and that voice information goes through Telnix to Symbol AI. D2 to D4. It processes that, it works out the move they want to make.
Computer moves from G8 to F6.
And then that information is sent via WebSockets to the web page. At which point the AI makes the move, and that move is then constructed into a sentence, passed back through Telnix to then speak that move to the person at the other end. But to tell you how that actually all works and the nitty-gritty details, it's over to Lily.
So we start by dialing into a Telnix number and creating a conference room. Then we invite Symbol AI to that conference room, and when the participants are in, we speak back to the first user who dialed in to say, you're ready to play. Then we listen to what the user has to say, pass it into a valid move to the chess webpage and wait for a response back that we again speak via telnex.
Were there any complications with the fact that we're in the UK and most of this infrastructure is in the US?
Yes, so a trick we had to implement is that there are two phone numbers attached to our call control app in telnex. One is UK, which I'm dialing into play, and once I'm dialed in, we have Symbol AI joining the US number into the same conference room.
Originally, I was playing with this idea and was using SIP to send the voice. When we switched to using the phone, we had the additional complication that sometimes the Symbol AI voice would be heard by itself, or rather the telnex voice would be heard by the Symbol AI voice. So Lily had to implement some more magic to make sure that it didn't hear itself.
Yes, so when using the speak command for a conference, you can add which call control IDs to speak to. So I had to make sure when we first connect the call that the human call control ID was registered, and then I could speak only to that user. So Symbol AI wasn't trying to read it smooth all the time.
Good. Now, you could implement a lot of this using the speech recognition APIs, which are in a lot of browsers, but they're not in all of them, certainly not some of the cheaper tablets that people would use to play games. And also, the speech recognition isn't quite as good. One of the things that Symbol AI does, for example, is puts a full stop at the end of the sentence, which is really handy when it comes to parsing this stuff out and making sure you've got a full sentence to process. The process itself kind of helps with accessibility and people who aren't necessarily au fait with using the mouse or the keyboard to control things. And to face it, it looks quite cool to speak to your computer, to play chess, and it to make the moves. So that's Wizard Chess by Similarly Geeky. Bye-bye. G1 to F3.
Computer moves from B7 to D5.
E2 to E4.
Computer moves from D5 to E4.
You're right, I'm rubbish at this. Bye.
Okay, leaving.
Okay, moving on. Now onto Jambons. That's an open source CPaaS. And one of the really neat things that Jambons has is a whole range of Node-RED plugins. Now, the hack is called Node-RED Conferencing Service. It's created by Sam Machin. If you're in the CPaaS world, you'll have seen Sam many times. It's a great example of the power of Node-RED, not just to control, for example, IoT devices, but to control services and all the pieces that make this service up. It's a very personal example. Because of COVID, his father-in-law needs this conferencing service for working with all the other parishioners in the local church. You also get to see, when you're hacking, the real world happens around you. So you get to see some of his dogs coming in behind him. And it's a great example of the power of open source, because in doing this hack, he discovered some bugs and submitted fixes. That's amazing. Again, it shows how open source platforms get better fast. Again, Jambons, open source CPaaS.
Hello TADHack, my name's Sam Machin, and I'm going to show you what I've been working on over the weekend. So what I've done is I've been re-implementing an application I previously built in Node-RED for my father-in-law using the Nexmo Vonage voice API, and it's a conference call really. He runs his church service over a all-hands conference call type of use case since the start of the pandemic. Really nice kind of use case because it's lowest common denominator. Everybody has access to a phone. They've been getting about 30 to 50 people 2 or 3 times a week joining these kind of online or on the phone services. And he has a moderator interface so he can kind of control mute and stuff like that. This UI here is the flow implemented with the Nexmo API. There was some quite complicated stuff to do with kind of controlling of the muting, because you had to mute every individual participant and keep track of them and stuff. And this is the flow implemented with Jambons. So Jambons has a Node-RED package available, and it's a lot easier to especially to control all the conference muting. Dave's been really good about implementing a couple of features there. So what happens is our call comes in, we say hello, and we wait a couple of seconds just to kind of let the audio path sort out, because it seems to connect, and for the media path to open up from the carrier to the servers and back to my phone, there was a little delay. So it's really just some padding. We then look at the caller ID to determine if it's the moderator or the host, or just a participant. If it's a participant, we greet them with a welcome to the service, and we drop them into a conference with they join as muted. Start on entry is not checked, so it doesn't start the conference itself, and it plays back some hold music from another wait hook. So this handler here will just return back a play verb containing a URL to a random audio track, and it'll keep them on hold all the time. When the moderator joins, similarly, they're dropped in with a greeting that confirms that they have the host mode, and they're put into the same conference name, but with a different set of settings. So start on entry is checked, so it will start the call, start the conference, and they're not muted. Then we've got what we do is we use that event on the status switch to log that out to a dashboard. You can see what we kind of have as a user interface. So fairly simple set of buttons. These are all driven from these blue nodes in the node red flow, and that will show who's on the call, and then let them mute and unmute it, and if needs be, they can even end it and kick everybody off. So let's join a participant phone. Wi-Fi calling's being really slow to connect. There we go. And so
Welcome to the Evangel Virtual
service. That'll when it gets the audio from, there we go, it's playing our audio back, so delay getting from S3, and we can see who's on the call. And so they're on hold, they'll just be played that hold music. Now if I dial in my host, there we go, and now the audio is connected, and I can talk as the host, and you can probably hear the feedback from that one. But if I talk into this one, you don't hear the thing other than on speaker. Now, if we hit the unmute, it opens it up, and everybody can talk. So we're in an open call, and then we can unmute. And there's loads of feedback, which is really nice. Let's turn that off. And this one, turn the speaker off, and then when the participant hangs up the call, they disappear out of the list. So fairly simple kind of application, but it's working out really well, and it was really interesting to just re-implement it on Jambones to kind of compare the APIs. Found a few little bugs and glitches in the Node-RED package, but I've submitted those as a pull request for Dave to release an update now. So we managed to fix some bugs as well, which is always good. Thanks a lot.
Okay, moving on to the Subspace Pitch. Now this one's very interesting because it's not a hack, it's an actual contribution to an open source project. So what Dan Jenkins has done is taken the SIP teleport service and made it available through Jambons. So now Jambons is a CPaaS that supports DDoS. So this is very interesting how he's been able to take one capability from one of the sponsors, mash it up with one of the others, and contribute it to the project. So again, over a weekend, we've seen a dramatic enhancement in the capabilities that Jambons can support. Again, another example of the power of open source in programmable communications.
Hi, I'm Dan Jenkins, and this is my hack called Open Source Contributing Back, or something along those lines. So I did a hack with Subspace and Jambones, but as Jambones is an open source CPaaS, I decided I would add to the CPaaS rather than use it. So I decided I'd quite like to offer DDoS support to Jambones customers in a instant one-click type fashion. So Jambones is our open source CPaaS. The idea behind it is awesome. This is my hosted version. it's important to remember that a hosted version is slightly different to the self-hosted version. So this is the hosted version, and the changes haven't been made in here yet because obviously we want to get them into the open source version first, and then migrate the changes over once everything is working the way that we want it to work. So Subspace offer SIP teleport, which offer reduced latency, etc., etc., but also theoretical DDoS support. I say theoretical because I haven't tested it, but that's a claim that they make. And so you can see in here we've got SIP teleport, and we haven't got any SIP teleport at the moment. So this is Jambone's self-hosted version, and this is the web app repo, and then there's an API repo. And so you can see that in here I've come in and added a Subspace client ID. So you go and create this in your console. And so I've created a TADHack client ID, etc. So you add in your client ID there, and then you add in your client secret that you get given. And so you can save that. And you can see that I haven't got a Subspace teleport, and you can see that is the case because we haven't got one here either. And so it's as simple as being able to go into edit and enable, and so that it instantly gives us SIP teleport on this IP, on this IP and this and these different ports for our domain of sip.nimble.a.pe. So instead of sending your traffic to sip.nimble.a.pe, you would instead send your traffic here, and that's it. So you can enable, and you can see it's enabled here. You can disable, and it goes and deletes it from Subspace, so it's not here. And then the long-term goal, I'm just checking my time, I've got 1 minute 54 left. The long-term goal would be to make this UI a little bit nicer, because at the moment you have to come in and add your credentials, press save, and then come back in to actually enable and disable, because the details don't get updated on the fly. And then long-term goal would be to then shove, the API is pretty much the same between hosted and non-hosted and self-hosted, but the UI is slightly different because within hosted you've only got one account, whereas with self-hosted you can have as many different accounts as you want. So we can create multiple accounts with multiple different Subspace accounts, or you could use the same account but create multiple SIP teleports within that account, and they're all treated individually. So that's my hack. I really wanted to contribute to a project. I really like contributing to projects instead of kind of just building something with a platform, and both of these services or projects are very, very interesting to me. So that's my hack. Thank you very much.
Next, we're going to hear a relatively short pitch from Berlin entitled The Arbor Effect. Now, Arbor Networks is SMS delivered your way, and this is a very interesting example of the savings possible using least cost routing for SMS. So if you're an enterprise with a large volume of SMS traffic, maybe marketing traffic, maybe you're running a call center and you're generating more and more SMS traffic, then this is a very interesting API with some significant savings made possible. So onto the Arbor Effect.
Hi TADHack community, from Berlin team number 3. We will now present our hack, which is called the Arbor Effect. We choose Arbor to check and prove if it works, especially their least cost routing function. Therefore we generated campaign files, a big and a small campaign with hundreds of mobile numbers from different countries all over the world, and want now to visualize that in our web application and Arbor API endpoints. We start now with a small campaign. And we see four providers: Telecom, MessageBird, Twilio, and Telnix, which are more expensive compared against the least cost routing function of Arbor, because Arbor seems to use the cheapest path per message from these four providers. We will start a big campaign as well to see a difference. The small campaign has 700 numbers, the big campaign 1,400 numbers, a bit more distributed all over the world. And again, Telecom, Twilio, MessageBird, and Telnix by their own are more expensive compared to the integration of Arbor and their least cost routing function. That's the Arbor effect, and again, or as well, what we like is, as from developer perspective, the integration against one API or one SMS API endpoint to send our SMS campaign and not to integrate against many different providers with a logic. That's it. Bye.
And last but not least, we have Telnix and their hack. Now this is Rescuer, Rescue Robot. It actually uses all of the sponsors' technologies. It's focused on the problem that we saw in Florida with the collapsed building and using a robot to be able to access people that are trapped in the building. So it includes voice controls, text communications. I mean, you'll see in the video. We give you edited highlights. In particular, one of the things it uses is the Verify API from Telnix to enable secure control and communications over the robot.
We are Rescuer, autonomous rescue robot. This is TADHack 2021. So thanks for our sponsors, Symbol AI, Jambons, Telnix, Iowa, and Subspace. And next slide. So our problem domain is, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Miami collapse building about a few months back. The building collapsed, there were, it was a catastrophe. There was a lot of missing persons cases. There was no way to actually figure out how to actually respond to the situation because we never had anything like this. And so how do you figure out where to find somebody, how to dig up which rubble in order to find that person and bring them to immediate attention. So this led to a lot of deaths. There's also rescue roads that are too big to navigate in such a space and avenue. So we wanted to kind of go through this domain and figure out hey, can we build something that could make this situation easier when we have to respond to a first case incident like this. And so our solution is called the Autonomous Rescue Robot, or Rescuer for short. So if you go back one slide. So what we're going to be doing is we have first responders, right? And those first responders, we're going to equip them with a iPad or a device, and they can go on an application that lets them control this robot, and then right here, and then the robot is going to be something like a Boston Dynamics dog. We actually have a smaller dog that's like that we kind of can demo a little bit of it.
It's more a cat.
It's more of a cat. But in any case, we have a proof of concept and a prototype that we can use to kind of showcase what its feature sets are for the bigger applications. And then then the long-term goal is to use this robot with its advanced feature set to help in search and rescue operations. So here's our demo, and I'll hand off to Montasser.
All right, so basically our aim for building this robot is to reduce the latency it requires for emergency responders to get to hotspots where people might be trapped or they don't have access to. So for example, if there's a building collapse and there's rubble or there's an earthquake, rescuers need to get to people where they are, and they need real-time communications. So joining these two together, we've developed a prototype bot. This is basically sitting in the other room because we're going to show you a little bit of the functionality. If you can play the... So it has quadrupedal locomotion, so basically you can walk on all four legs. Right now it's a prototype thing, so it really it kind of falls over. But what we were able to do is, proof of concept wise, this is battery powered. It has a bunch of onboard sensors which are relevant for emergency rescue. Things like a microphone, it has a speaker, and essentially it can act as a voice relay unit. So imagine someone trapped under rubble. You can send the rescue robot in and have a line of communication with potentially people who are trapped under debris. So two-factor authentication, we use Telnex's two-factor authentication in order for the real-time emergency responders to be able to access the bot at any time. So this way we are allowing multi-access to a single point of operations, and we can do that via either phone call or via SMS. So essentially you get access to all the robot functionalities as if you are logging into our website.
Thank you to getting to this part of the video. I hope you found some of those hacks inspirational. They really are demonstrating the power of programmable communications. It can solve a vast array of problems, and most enterprises are putting that programmability in their communications today. So again, TADHack is made possible to many hundreds of people all around the world dedicated to the power of programmable communications. And for this year, the sponsors who made TADHack Global possible include Arbor Networks, SMS Your Way, Symbol.ai, it's a conversation intelligence platform, Jambons, open source CPaaS, Subspace, a optimized real-time communications over the internet, and Telnex, a full suite of CPaaS capabilities. Thank you for listening, and I hope we've inspired you to get in and start programming your communication platforms. Bye-bye.